morning folks, and welcome to a rather special edition of Visordown. We are going to be riding up from Land's End in Cornwall to John O'Groats in Scotland.
And Alex for Visordown here. Now, what we've done is picked two flagship bikes from Triumph, the Triumph Tiger 900 Rally Pro and GT Pro.
Each of these bikes has a very specific skill set, and we're going to be putting that to the test and trying these bikes out on all of the roads and possibly some of the trails that they're designed to handle. What
we're going to be doing is not taking the easiest route, the most direct route, or the quickest route by any means. We're going to be detouring along the way to see some of the famous faces that are big fans of the Triumph brand.
Tomorrow we'll be talking to Victoria Pendleton, the multi-gold medal winning cyclist. And then on day 2, we'll be heading up into South Wales to talk to George North, Welsh rugby icon and a big fan of Triumph motorcycles.
So to stop all the talking, we need to get going. I mean, we need to get all the way to Land's End to even begin this trip. And that's quite a hefty ride in itself, so let's get going.
Yeah, I totally agree with that one, Alex. Let's get packing, let's get on the road. For me, that was a fairly hefty 300-mile slog along the A46 and then south on the M5 before picking up the A30 and following it to the most westerly point in England. Alex, who lives in the wilds of Diss in Norfolk, had a much more arduous journey. Over 430 miles of motorways, the dreaded M25 and staycation traffic to boot. Luckily though, we had the bikes for the task. Alex was riding the awesome Tiger 900 Rally Pro, while I'd lucked out and nabbed the top spec GT Pro for my trip. Neither is shy of putting on some big miles in a short space of time, although the extra on-road prowess of the GT Pro really shone through once we were on the twisties. Once we had the bikes at Land's End, the plan was as follows. Head over to Bournemouth to speak to Triumph ambassador and multi-gold medal winning cyclist Victoria Pendleton. That would round out day 1. From there we'd head north over the Bristol Channel and into South Wales to meet and ride with rugby icon and custom motorcycle fanatic George North. From there it was a straight run north, as fast and as far as we could go, out of Wales, looping around Manchester and Liverpool for an overnight stop in Barrow and Furness. That would be rounding out day 2 with a 445-mile total. With Scotland just over the Lake District, it was a short and picturesque hop north of the border, for a final blast to John O'Groats before a well-earned beer and a very long sleep. It wasn't going to be the shortest, the fastest, or the most direct Land's End to John O'Groats trip, but we did want to test out the latest top-spec Tigers to their full ability. Right, let's get this show on the road. After getting some filming in the bag at Land's End, we headed out on the A30 very early morning, battled our way through the staycation traffic and hugged the south coast of England. Heading along the A35, we looped round Dorchester and then on into Bournemouth for around 10 o'clock to meet one of Britain's most successful cyclists. We'd already completed around 200 miles that morning, although sadly most of them were in the wrong direction. Good afternoon folks, welcome to Visordown. I am Toad and I'm sat with one of the UK and England's most probably highly prized cyclists of all time, I would say.
Well, that's very generous of you.
Is it not true?
One of them, maybe one of them.
One of them, Victoria Pendleton. So we are here to have a bit of a catch-up really, not just to talk bikes, but also to talk the Olympics and just everything that you're up to at the moment, if that's cool. So we are... Where are we again? This is Through Dark.
Yeah.
Okay.
Through Dark HQ.
So all of this stuff, is this the stuff that you make and sell, or is this just here for...
No, this is just here for fun. So, yeah.
That does not sound like fun to me whatsoever.
It's recreational.
No, this is for fun.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, this is torture. So first and foremost, thank you for having us along and taking the time out of your schedule. As you know, we are trying to do Land's End to John O'Groats, and we thought we would call in at some ambassadors of Triumph and some people who sort of know Triumph and know the brand, just to get their thoughts on the overall brand, if that's cool. Before we go into Triumph, though, we have to talk bicycles, really. I mean, it's probably what you're best known for is the track cycling, and the Kirin especially was one of your speciality races, wasn't it?
It was in the end of my career. Like, I was track racing from the age of 9, just as a hobby. I got a phone call one day saying, "Someone, do you want to test out for the national squad?" And I was like, "Dad, there's a man on the phone says needs me to go to Manchester to do some testing," and then the rest is history. I kind of avoided joining professional sport for as long as possible because I didn't really believe it was a thing that girls did, especially not cycling. I was a bit like, I know like the Tour de France, and there are some guys that do track cycling, but I didn't really know any female equivalents. So I always thought, I'm going to get my education sorted first. I'm going to get something to fall back on because being an athlete is fairly, it's a risky profession. An injury, an illness, you miss your chance at a big competition, it's all over. So I went in it very tentatively, just, I'll give it a go. And then, 15 years later...
Here we are.
Here we are.
Quite literally.
Yeah.
So, I mean, from the track cycling, which is obviously an adrenaline kind of sport in its purest form, it's just the speed that you're going for effectively and the endurance of that as well. You've then also taken up equestrian. So you were talking to us earlier on about falling off a racehorse at breakneck speed. What is it about these kind of these high adrenaline, high impact sort of sports? What draws you to them? And and then onto motorcycles as well, because they can all sort of go into the same pools in a similar way.
There's a lot of similarities throughout all of the things that we do. Like I really enjoy the sensation of speed, and when you're on a bicycle, for example, on a velodrome, you get very low resistance, and you do hit some pretty, tasty speeds, powered purely by yourself.
What are we talking about here?
So I think topping out about 80 kilometres an hour, which on a bicycle feels really fast.
That's about 50 miles an hour.
We used to use a 250 motorcycle on the velodrome and basically just sit like 2 inches off the rear wheel and follow it. So we could do overspeed work, because you get a huge draft, obviously. It almost sucks you along. So the sensation of speed is something that I feel really comfortable with, really familiar with. And then when I got asked if I wanted to move to trying out to be a jockey, I thought, well, I'll give that a go. I've never ridden a horse before, but I like speed. Actually, quite similar speeds to track cycling in the most part. So when the horse is going full gallop, the sensation is very similar. Like I don't feel like it's too hard to process. Similar muscle groups, lower sort of body, quads, good core stability, race judgment. There were things that were transferable. And the motorcycling thing came last of all, but it was always on my bucket list.
Right.
I always thought motorbikes were really cool. And my sister, when she was a little bit younger, was a bit of into biking. She had an R6, and I thought she was so cool. Everything my big sister did, I was like, I want to do that too.
Right.
She found me super annoying growing up, as you can imagine, but I was like, wow. And I remember when you saw people on motorcycles, either in films or, on the internet and all these things. That's like something I could really get into. And I don't want to be the girl sat on the back. I want to be the one driving it.
Yes.
That looks like way more fun to be in control
trust
than
me,
to be
going
sat on the back.
on the back of a motorcycle is absolutely no fun at all. I'm the worst pilly, and I absolutely hate it.
Yeah, because I kind of for me, I want to be I've always wanted to be the hero of it. I don't want to be the damsel in distress, or the girl on the back of the bike. I want to be doing all the cool stuff, having the most fun. So it was on my bucket list for a very long time. It was just finding a space in my schedule and my life that I could actually put the time in to do it and get my tests sorted and start exploring it. And then as soon as I went down that little avenue, I was like, oh wow, this is so much fun. And actually, one of the things that really pushed me to actually get it done was having a lift on those limo bikes around London. So, you jump on the back and they take you through the centre of town when all traffic is like gridlock and it's impossible. You've got 2 meetings you need to get to. And I know a lot of TV presenters use it and those sort of things. And the guys that rode the bikes always seemed very chilled, very cool, and it was so kind of exhilarating to whiz through town without being stuck in that London traffic. And I just really enjoyed it. I was like, I need to do this. I really, really need to do this.
It is good.
It is good.
My commute to the office in London takes me literally into the shadow of St Paul's Cathedral, and I just laugh at some of the cars coming off the A1, and I just think, God, I'm going to be sat at my work drinking coffee while you're still sat in a traffic queue on the A1 probably. It is very, very cool. And continuing the theme with bikes, I mean, you've been kind of working with Triumph, you've got a bit of a working relationship with Triumph, you have done for quite some time now. I mean, how did that come about? What sort of attracted you to the brand? What was it that you liked?
Well, I mean, obviously it's a great British brand. It's got incredible heritage, and I think a lot of people, it's a very stylish bike. I think they do things really well, and I kind of, the idea of them being manufactured in the UK and trying to compete with the best sort of Japanese brands, I think is really kind of exciting, and I think it makes you feel quite sort of proud, and I always try and support British brands as much as possible. I think I'm always be wearing the Union flag like through and through. It's red, white and blue, so I feel like that's important. But I really, when I got into motorcycling, I just met some really wonderful people who were so helpful and so encouraging, and sort of came up with these opportunities that, hey, would you like to try, going to an adventure centre, or do you want to do a track day? And I was like, yes, please.
Yeah, throw them at me.
So I feel really lucky that Triumph sort of contacted me and heard I was doing my test and was like, we'd love to work with you if you were interested. And I was like, well, funny you should say that, because I would love to work with you too.
Golden
and the rest
ticket.
is a beautiful history.
Yeah. I completely know what you mean, because like if we take this bike behind us, aside from a few wires and cables and stuff that you can see around the engine, it all looks pretty tidy. And this is probably one of the messiest bikes in terms of that Triumph make, because adventure bike's always there. But you look at some of the other bikes in the range, like Street Scrambler, or even the Bonnevilles or the Bobbers, you try and look for the stuff that makes the bike work, like the catalytic converter, and you can't see it, and the oil cooler, and you can't see it, and the oil filter, and it's like, where do they hide it all? That packaging is so important on a bike for me. I think nobody does that sort of detailing and finishing that Triumph do. There isn't anybody else in the industry that can really do that, which is quite cool. And
I'm very lucky that they've allowed me to try a lot of the different bikes that they produce. So I've tried the Rocket. I've been on the Triple RS. I've been on the Thruxton, which I loved, absolutely loved, because it's a bit of a biking position, isn't it? That cafe racer, that traditional style.
It's like the black and white photos when the wheels are kind of slanted over.
I loved that. And being able to try the different bikes as well, because being fairly new to the sport, it's like knowing where, what you're looking for in a bike. Like long term, it's difficult to know unless you've tried them and really explored the range and what's available. So for me, and that love of the Street Scrambler, they had to prise it out of my little hands. I was like, I love that bike. And they're like, yeah, we know, but we have to take it back.
We need to make some money.
Yeah, exactly.
So, let's do that question then. Yeah. Okay, you're on a desert island. Yeah. There's only one Triumph that you can ride for the rest of time. Choose carefully. I'm going to lay down some ground rules. Okay. This desert island, it does have tarmac roads as well as dirt roads. Okay. Yeah. So, what are you going for? Is it a Street Triple RS, a Rocket 3, or your beloved Street Scrambler?
Do you know what? I'd still go for the Scrambler, because I wouldn't be in a rush to get anywhere. I'm like a desert island.
That's very true.
Do you know what I mean? I can just enjoy it, be comfortable, take my time.
It's also going to be better on fuel, and I would imagine that fuel would be a bit of a premium.
It could be a little bit of a problem. Yeah, it could be a little bit of a problem. But the Street Scrambler is that lovely hybrid between being able to do kind of slightly, gravelly or green roads and still being able for it to be good on the tarmac as well. So it's it would work all round, and it's not like I needed to top end over, speed out there, does it really, top speed? It's just not in a desert island anyway.
A friendly, easygoing bike.
It is. And actually for someone to gain their confidence on, I feel like it was a really good bike for me. It's 900, it didn't feel excessive for me, and I felt really comfortable on it, and I've only got little legs, so it worked. I really liked it. Yeah.
So we've spoken about bikes, really. We've got to talk to you about the Olympics that are coming up. So the news broke this morning that the Japanese government are potentially considering cancelling the Olympics in Tokyo if cases of COVID in the country don't start residing at a decent level. I mean, that is an absolute pain for the athletes taking part, isn't it?
I can't imagine what it must be like. I mean, they've been so focused for so long, and then you've had the uncertainty of, is it going to happen? When is it going to happen? Is it not going to happen? So having to train through and maintain your form through that period would have been really challenging. And some people, it probably suited them really well if they were, for example, recovering from injury. But other athletes who may have been on absolute peak form this time last year might be struggling to claw onto it.
Yeah.
So it's a really difficult environment that will really, I think, affect everyone in such a different way. It's hard because you can't always train with the same intensity and drive that an Olympic Games kind of provides for you. So it would just be a little bit exhausting and a little bit demoralising if it gets cancelled. I think they'll all want to get out there, regardless of if there's anyone watching in the stands, and just express their performance and be like, this is what I've worked for, here we go.
On the track.
Yeah.
I mean, you just spoke about drive and maintaining that drive and that sort of focus on that goal.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're not competing in competitive cycling anymore.
No.
What is your drive? What do you? Because I always have this thing in my head that I imagine professional sports people, they never lose that competitive drive, that focus on winning and that goal. It never goes away. They just point it at something else.
Yeah.
So what's your kind of where's your focus going?
I've definitely chilled out. I've mellowed with age and distance from being an athlete. I always do things with a certain intensity. Like everything I do, I try and do it faster, more efficient, better than I did it yesterday.
Like the washing up.
Even the washing up. Even the washing up. I actually worked in the warehouse a bit during lockdown here because they split the teams to in order to make sure that if someone did go down, that they would still be able to operate. So I offered, because I didn't have any work on, because a lot of my work would involve being in a public space.
Yes.
So I was picking and packing, and I was like, right, do it, quick, efficient, carefully. And I really enjoyed it because I was focused in that task. I think I've got I'm very easily satisfied with like repetitive tasks.
Okay.
That's probably why I go round in circles so much.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a warehouse is a perfect place for you then.
Yeah, it's got a gym and everything. I mean, what more could you want?
I get the impression that the people who work in the warehouse normally would have been like, slow the hell down, you're making us look bad now.
No. But it was just, for me, like, I do, when I, for example, when I work out, I find it very hard to take it easy. I always want to, it's an intensity and a focus, I guess. It's not so much being competitive, because ultimately there's no point in being competitive picking and packing in a warehouse. But, you know, when I do a workout or when I go for a run, I can't just go easy.
Yeah.
It's like,
it's not just it's not a jog.
Yeah, it's like I want to get back and feel absolutely done in.
Right.
And that's just the way I roll.
I don't know why you do it or how you do it. But.
And then I find myself as well, when I cook, I love cooking, I love baking and all those things. Whenever I make a meal, I can't help myself but be like, right, so if I was going to make this again, how would I improve it? Like, constantly thinking, maybe I should add a little bit more sun-dried tomato next time. Probably maybe a pinch of paprika, but I can't help myself. I'm constantly looking for ways to improve what I'm doing, even on the most basic task.
Right.
It's a bit weird, isn't it?
It's not. It's fine. It's fine.
It's a search for perfection, which is unattainable.
Yeah, well, I mean, that is true in pretty much every walk of life and profession. So, yeah, I mean, go looking for it, see if you can find it, and then tell me where it is.
Yeah.
Listen, we've spoken far too long already. We've got to get on the road because we've got an absolute killer of a journey ahead up into Wales to go and see George North, and then on up to, oh God, John O'Groats. That sounds like a really, really long way away right now.
I mean, he's got a very cool setup there.
We are going to Baffle House to go and have a coffee.
I have only seen it via social media, but it looks super cool, like a really cool hangout.
We're going to go and check out.
One day I hope I'll visit there too.
Check out the strength of his coffee and compare it to yours.
Oh no, don't, please don't.
But listen, thank you very much for having us over, and it's been a pleasure talking to you. And we will see you in the next episode of this mammoth journey, which should be coming to you in the next day or so. Thanks very much, folks. Mate.
What a long trip.
That's a killer day.
Arduous, but it's been very enjoyable, to be fair. It's been a nice little ride on these two. I've got to say.
It's just so hot. It's everyone thinks that summer is like the time to be a biker. Summer is, but not when it's like this. It's too much.
Sweat comes out your sleeves and you're like, oh, it's hot.
Oh God, that's an image. So we've done probably about 160 miles more than we needed to on this one, but we had to get across from Land's End to Poole to go and interview Victoria Pendleton.
Well worth the detour.
It was well worth the detour, to be fair. And now we've got a straight run up to South Wales tomorrow to go and chat to George North, which as well should be equally entertaining. So we're going to talk to George about his relationship with Triumph. He's got a little bit of a different relationship with Triumph than Victoria. His relationship started because he had a passion for a particular custom bike that he'd sort of built himself. So yeah, we're going to go and have a little chat to him and hopefully see it and hopefully have a little bit of a ride with him if he's overcome his injury. But
Good.
Do you know what? Before that, I think we've earned a beer.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely.
Cheers, dude.
Cheers. Good ride.